Did a shadow crew just pull off the impossible in Zurich? According to the official investigation, the heist began with silence. No alarms, no broken glass. The vault of the Credit Suisse depository is considered a fortress. 50 centimeters of reinforced alloy, thermal sensors that can detect a heartbeat, and a biometric lock that shouldn't exist. Yet, when the timer lock disengaged at 800 a.m., the shelves were bare. $100 million. Gone. Evaporated into thin air. But here is the nightmare scenario. Outside that door, 12 elite guards were on patrol. 50 redundant 4K cameras covered every blind spot. A fly couldn't enter that corridor without triggering a lockdown. Despite this massive surveillance net, the intruders faced zero resistance. Why? The guards reported a quiet night. The security logs showed green across the board. But when forensic teams pulled the raw server data, the lead investigator was left trembling, staring at a screen that showed a perfect, empty hallway while a fortune was being carted out right under his nose. The bank manager reportedly collapsed, sick with shock. This wasn't magic, it was a new breed of weapon. Cyber warfare analysts are calling it a ghost protocol. A soft kill for digital security. How do you stop a thief you can't see? How do you walk through walls without breaking them? To understand the crime, you first have to look at what didn't happen. The cameras didn't blink. The sensors didn't trip. Based on the recovered data fragments, here is how the event likely occurred. The first clue wasn't found in the vault. It was found in the timestamps. When forensic experts scrubbed through the terabytes of security footage, the hallway leading to the main vault appeared completely undisturbed. No shadows, no movement, just cold, gray concrete. But digital perfection is suspicious. In the real world, sensors have noise. Light flickers, dust motes float. This footage was too clean. Upon closer inspection, utilizing a high-contrast compression algorithm, analysts discovered a microscopic anomaly. A single dead pixel in the top left corner of the frame. It didn't just stay dead, it blinked. And it blinked with impossible regularity, exactly once every 600 seconds. This wasn't a hardware malfunction. It was a cut point. It was the seam in a digital tapestry. The thieves weren't invisible. The camera was lying. To understand how they pulled this off, you have to understand the architecture of modern wireless security. Most high-end systems rely on a constant stream of Wi-Fi packets sent from the camera to the central server. It is a handshake that happens thousands of times a second. The intruders utilized a weapon known in the cyber security world as a man-in-the-middle attack, but executed with a level of sophistication that borders on art. It is theorized they planted a physical device, likely a modified signal interceptor no larger than a deck of cards, inside the ventilation system days before the heist. This device didn't jam the signal. Jamming is loud. Jamming creates a loss of signal alert that would instantly trigger a lockdown and send a SWAT team to the front door. These operators didn't want silence, they wanted false noise. Here is how the technology works. The interceptor sends a targeted burst of de-authentication packets to the camera. It's a digital command that effectively screams, "Disconnect now." For a fraction of a second, the camera drops its connection to the bank's server. In that tiny window of chaos, the hacker's device steps in. It mimics the bank's router perfectly. It clones the SSID, the MAC address, and the encryption protocols. The camera, desperate to reconnect, latches onto the strongest signal it can find. It thinks it is talking to the bank. In reality, it is talking to the thieves. Once that handshake is made, the camera is compromised. It is no longer a guardian, it is a puppet. The device begins to feed the server a stream of data that looks legitimate, feels legitimate, and passes every encryption check. But it isn't live video. It is a loop, a pre-recorded 10-minute segment of an empty hallway injected directly into the network stream. That blinking pixel. That was the moment the video file restarted. The consequence is a total disconnect between reality and observation. Think about the psychology of the guard sitting in that control room. He is looking at a wall of 50 monitors. He sees stillness. He sees safety. The trusted system is telling him that the world is at peace. His brain relaxes. He leans back in his chair. But physically, just 20 meters away, on the other side of that wall, a team of operators is walking freely down the corridor. They are drilling. They are moving heavy equipment. They are making noise. But in the control room, the guard sees nothing but a gray, empty hallway. The hackers didn't just bypass the lock. They bypassed the human senses. They created a digital hallucination that blinded an entire security team without touching their eyes. And the scale of this operation suggests something even more terrifying. A man-in-the-middle attack is usually targeted at a single device, like a laptop in a coffee shop. To do this to 50 4K security cameras simultaneously requires massive processing power and zero latency. If the video loop lags by even a millisecond, the audio desynchronizes and the illusion shatters. This wasn't a single device. Experts believe the crew deployed a localized botnet, a swarm of compromised devices hidden throughout the facility, communicating with each other in a hive mind. They balanced the load, synchronizing the video loops, so that every camera in the facility blinked at the exact same moment. This level of coordination is not something you buy on the dark web. It is military-grade synchronization. It turned the bank's most expensive asset, its surveillance network, into its biggest liability. The guards were watching a movie while the robbery happened in the theater behind them. But even with the cameras blinded, the vault itself should have been impenetrable. And this is where the story stops making sense. Because once they reached the door, they didn't blow it. They didn't drill the core. The logs show that the electronic lock accepted a valid code. The thieves didn't break in. The system let them in. And when they finally entered the vault, surrounded by stacks of cash and gold bullion, they did something that confused investigators for weeks. They ignored the gold. They walked past millions of dollars in untraceable currency. Why go to all this trouble? Why deploy a weapon capable of blinding a digital fortress just to leave the money on the floor? Because the cash was never the target. All of this, the blinded cameras, the loop, the silent entry, it was just the setup for something much bigger. The authorities thought they were investigating a robbery. They were wrong. They were investigating a distraction. But all of this is just a deception. The empty vault, the blinded cameras, the silence. It was all designed to force the police to look down, deep into the earth, while the real target was sitting 20 floors above their heads. The authorities were obsessed with the cash. But in the modern world, cash is heavy. Cash is traceable. Cash is obsolete. The faceless crew didn't want paper. They wanted the lifeblood of the institution. They wanted the data. We finally have the reconstructed timeline of how they breached the most secure server room in Europe. Let's start with step 1, the setup. This didn't happen overnight. For 6 months, the crew had been tightening a digital noose around the bank's infrastructure. They weren't looking for a way in, they were looking for a rhythm. Every bank has a heartbeat, a schedule of shift changes, data backups, and system resets. They monitored the electromagnetic emissions from the building's IT department. They tracked the personal devices of the senior sysadmins. They waited for a specific window, a moment where the system was blind and vulnerable. That moment is known in the industry as the maintenance gap. Every Tuesday at exactly 300 a.m., the bank's main firewall resets for a firmware update. It takes exactly 120 seconds. For 2 minutes, the digital drawbridge is down. Step 2, the strike. It began at exactly 20:59 a.m. The ghost protocol device went active. The camera feed looped. The security center went blind. Down in the lobby, the electronic locks on the service entrance disengaged. Not by force, but by a command sent from a cloned administrator keycard. The doors slid open with a soft hiss. A 4-man team entered the building. They weren't wearing balaclavas or tactical vests. They were wearing the blue coveralls of the bank's contracted HVAC maintenance company. They carried toolboxes, clipboards, and coffees. They looked so boring, so routine, that even if a guard had looked up from his looped screen, his brain would have filtered them out as background noise. They walked past the elevators. They walked past the armed checkpoint. They walked straight to the service stairwell. While the world outside was sleeping, they climbed 20 flights of stairs in total silence. They weren't rushing. Rushing creates noise. Rushing creates mistakes. They moved with a surgical cadence. Step 3, the breach. At 30:10 a.m., they reached the server farm on the top floor. This room is the brain of the bank. It holds the ledger of every transaction, every client identity, and every private key for the ultra-wealthy account holders. The door to the server room is biometrically sealed. Retinal scan, voice print, weight sensors. It is impenetrable. But in the dark of the night, the myth of invincibility didn't just crack, it evaporated. The opening salvo didn't come from explosives, but from physics. One of the operatives pulled a canister from his toolbox. Liquid nitrogen. He sprayed the biometric panel until the sensors froze, effectively shattering the thermal glass mechanism. A swift kinetic strike with a hammer shattered the lock. They were in. Rows of servers hummed in the darkness, blinking with blue and green lights. The air was cold, conditioned to keep the machines from overheating. The team didn't touch the servers. They didn't need to steal the machines. They opened their toolboxes and revealed the true weapon: 4 high-speed, military-grade solid-state drives, pre-loaded with an automated extraction script. They plugged directly into the mainframe's localized port. This bypassed the external firewall entirely. It's like stabbing the beast directly in the heart. The screens on the wall flickered red. The system tried to scream, tried to alert the admins, but the connection was choked by the loop device downstairs. The data began to flow. In an instant, terabytes of information, names, addresses, social security numbers, offshore account details were turned into a stream of binary code. It wasn't a robbery, it was a data migration. The progress bar on their drive ticked up 20%, 50%, 90%. Step 4, the extraction. This is where the genius of the plan reveals itself. At 3:25 a.m., the download was complete. The drives were unplugged. The evidence was erased. But they couldn't just walk out the way they came. The morning shift was about to start. The loop on the cameras was degrading. The timestamps were getting out of sync. The illusion was about to break. So, they triggered the distraction. Using a remote command, they tripped the silent alarm on the vault door in the basement, 20 floors below them. Think about the psychology of the response. The police receive a silent alarms, vault breach. Every squad car, every SWAT team, every helicopter converges on the basement. The perimeter is set up around the ground floor. The commanders are screaming into their radios, focusing entirely on the money. At 3:30 a.m., chaos erupted outside. Blue lights flashed against the building. Sirens wailed. The bank manager arrived terrified, and in the middle of this storm, the service door on the side of the building opened. 4 maintenance workers walked out. One of them even held the door for a rushing police officer. The officer didn't stop them. Why would he? He was looking for robbers in masks carrying bags of money. He wasn't looking for tired workmen carrying toolboxes. The team walked right through the police cordon. They walked past the ambulances. They walked past the press vans setting up their cameras. They got into a generic white van parked 2 blocks away and dissolved into the city traffic. Back inside, the SWAT team finally breached the vault. They threw in flashbangs. They shouted for suspects to get on the ground. But when the smoke cleared, the room was empty. The money was untouched. The gold was stacked neatly in rows. The commander on the ground was confused. The bank manager was relieved. "They didn't take anything," he said. "We got lucky." He was wrong. He was dead wrong. 20 floors above, the server room was silent. The lights were blinking green, but the soul of the bank was gone. The identities of its clients were already on the dark web, being sold to the highest bidder before the police had even holstered their weapons. The strike didn't just rob the bank, it decapitated its reputation. As the sun rose over Zurich, the message was clear to every other financial institution in the city. Your walls don't matter. Your guards don't matter. You are alone, and you are naked. This operation forces us to rewrite the definition of power. In the 20th century, you needed an army to conquer a fortress. You needed explosives to breach a vault. Today, you just need a line of code. The faceless crew proved that the most dangerous weapon isn't the one you see holstered at a guard's hip. It is the one that moves through the wires, silent and invisible, turning our own technology against us. The extraction wasn't just a theft, it was a demonstration. It showed that in a hyper-connected world, security is an illusion maintained by blinking lights and silent servers. And when those lights lie, the illusion shatters. To visualize this invisible war, our team spent over 200 hours reconstructing the banking architecture and the specific hacking protocols used in this raid. We analyzed the packet data, the hardware specs, and the physical layout to create the most accurate simulation of a cyber-physical attack ever rendered. We built these 4K 3D models from the ground up so you could finally see what the cameras missed. We are a small team of animators dedicated to decoding the world's most complex engineering mysteries. So, please support us by subscribing and dropping a comment below. Tell us, do you trust the screen you are looking at right now? If you want us to break down how to firewall your own life against these digital ghosts, let us know. Stay safe.